Hey, this is former WWE superstar and ECW original, The Blue Meanie. And you're watching the Tell Us About Yourself show on Foxworthy 257. Now, if you're looking to watch a show about people who play the Super Show wrestling card and dice game, I highly recommend it. The Blue Meanie told you! The Blue Meanie sent you to watch Foxworthy 257, or else I'll come get you.
My name is Brian Pillman Jr., and you are watching Tell Us About Yourself, only on Foxworthy 257 Twitch channel.
Hi guys, I'm Session Martina, and you are watching Tell Us About Yourself on Foxworthy 257 on Twitch. I'm going to get some cans. Are you going to get cans and watch with me?
And we are live with tonight's episode, which is a rehash of our first episode where we only got a half hour with the BOSS, Steve Resk. And joining me as my co-host is Jeremy, with that beautiful art background, which for some reason we haven't seen on the Super Show card yet, and I don't know why. Yeah, it's amazing. All right, sir. So I'm gonna start with our the questions we get from Evil Ed, because he's actually been subscribed for 10 months now. So 257, but he didn't start subscribing until Tell Us About Ourselves. So I think I don't count the numbers like Dustin did that, and I just can't worry about that. But I think we're at about a year of the show. So about yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I have not seen or heard any of them yet. I know she was doing some, but I haven't seen any of that. And they can't hear Steve for some reason. Hold on. Let me check to see. No, it's stupid. All right, they should be able to hear you now if you talk.
So that is all the information you need on
Yep.
Faction Wars 3, and I will not repeat it. So good luck to everybody who heard it.
Yeah, I'm really getting annoyed with OBS because they keep changing settings on me. Like every time it updates, it changes my audio so it can't hear, and it's getting annoying. All right, so since we got all that Faction War stuff out of the way, we'll go into the good questions. It has been about a year that we've been running the show, and you were the first guest, so it is great to have you back. So Evil Ed started with his first question, which is cheese or pickle?
Cheese. I mean, I'm not anti-pickle, but cheese literally makes everything better. I think it's the hardest thing for me to cut out of a diet. I mean, you have grilled cheese sandwiches that are awesome. You put cheese on your pasta, it just makes it better. Goat cheese, one of my favorite things in the world. I just actually had a salad pizza for lunch where they subbed out my gorgonzola for feta cheese. I was a little upset about that, but it was excellent. Cheese by far. And Mr. Christopher Guardino, who's in my background photo, said that when a question was asked about what food is better when it's a little bit overcooked, his answer was cheese. And I think that was an excellent answer.
That's fair. As a pescatarian, I guess cheese is okay in that diet. I wasn't sure because, it does come from an animal. But I guess if you eat fish, you might as well eat cheese.
I have a strange eating policy. I feel like if I think that I would be able to spend some quality time with you, I might not want to eat you. That's where the whole pescatarian thing had continued from, not where it stemmed from.
Yeah, but there's some nice fish that you can spend time with.
I mean octopuses, which is technically correct.
Is it? I thought it would be octopi.
It's octopi.
Yeah.
There's a good show that I'll link you to after that. One of the XCW guys linked me to.
Okay.
And it was about fun facts about octopuses. With Hold the Line Harry hosted it, I think. That's exactly who it looked like.
Oh. Well, so it's definitely wrong. All right. Evil Ed also has his follow-up question of fox or sheep.
Fox, you. I mean, Jeff Fox, of course. He brought me on the show twice. Is that even a question? What has a sheep ever done for me? What's that, mommy girl? Fox or sheep? Sage with the save.
Yeah.
Gave you hours of entertainment with keywords.
I mean,
That's what sheep.
yeah. I mean, you probably don't eat lamb, and I don't know if you wear wool clothing. So I mean, or if you're T.J. Marconi, if you wear cotton clothing, because he does believe cotton comes from sheep, which is still the strangest fact that ever came on the show.
Ask him that.
Yeah, he because when he had that question, that was his answer. Oh, I like sheep because that's where I get my cotton from.
My mom, my grandma, they like lamb chops. So if we go out, that's usually the thing that we go to. I used to love lamb chops. I prepare them pretty well, I think.
Yeah, I was never a lamb fan. It's just not my
And
thing.
she's back. Dun, dun, dun.
Right.
This time, no clothes on. That was quick, Mama. Come on,
So-
baby. I'm doing an interview, okay? I'll talk to you later. I love you.
Yeah, we have a hard-hitting question from the Candy Man.
Where are you tonight, Candy Ma'am?
Who knows? But it's the Candy Ma'am or Candy Man Dan question.
Who do I prefer?
Yeah, that is definitely the question.
I'm sorry, girl, but Candy Man by a pretty significant margin.
Wow.
He brings candy to the events, with or without you. Very nice guy, as you are too. But you know, if we're shooting at 100 right here, I'm a Candy Man guy. Even though I love Candy Man, you're my Candy Man.
And her heart is broken, she says.
Hey.
I mean, she thought she had a win there, and she definitely did not. All right. Speaking of candy, though, Master Micah would like to know if you prefer lime or green apple Skittles.
I guess I don't even think I've ever had a green apple Skittle. So I would probably some really flawed logic say lime. I didn't know that was a thing. I don't really like to deviate from the original Skittles. Like some people like the tropical stuff. I'm not really a big fan of that. I like the original Skittles, and I do like the sour Skittles in small doses, but I don't really get like the smoothie flavored ones or the tropicals or the berries. Like berry flavored Skittles, I think are pretty horrible.
Yeah, I think that is solid. I mean, they also have those zombie Skittles out there, I think it is. The ones that really taste horribly or whatever it is, which I don't think people should taste. But, you know. Candyman would like to know what movie makes you cry, possibly to force you to watch it as revenge for breaking her heart.
I don't know if the Groke, since Victoria Joe is around, is in chat, but if he's in chat, he will know exactly. This is one of my favorite stories about Chad Gropak. This is going to go into a tangent, but it's worth it. So we were driving to Gen Con one year, and we were talking about movies, and one of the movies was, what is a movie that made you cry? And Chad Gropak, the Groke, had said that there's only one movie of all time that had ever made him cry, and that I would never, ever guess it. And then at the exact same time, we both said Mighty Joe Young, and he could not believe that I guessed the movie that made him cry. I don't know what made me realize it, or, you know, because Mighty Joe Young made me cry as a kid, and I remember it was one thing, and it was at that point that Grope accepted that I have psychic powers, and we do have some sort of psychic connection. Lots of movies make me cry. I love sad movies, but Mighty Joe Young stands out as one of them because of that story. Probably always cry during The Fault in Our Stars, which I probably watched more times than I'm proud of. It's a great movie.
Okay.
I cried during Peanut Butter Falcon on the plane. And then a couple tears dropped during. That's a great movie, especially if you're a wrestling fan. I don't know. I mean, those stand out for me recent, but like any movie that you would expect to be able that will cry to. You know, I'm not one of those people.
All right. Yeah, I mean, speaking of movies, have you worked in Big Trouble in Little China yet?
I have not. I couldn't even tell you what the plot was about, except that it's all in the reflexes, apparently.
Oh man, that's such a classic movie. Such a classic. All right, getting away from movies. Fun time, Bob would know. If you are cutting peppers, what is the best thing to cure irritated skin? Yogurt or baby wipes?
Baby wipes works much better than yogurt, but it's not a permanent effect. So if you are cutting hot peppers, you want to keep your hands away from all very sensitive areas, your eyes, your lips, you know, any other place that might be the biggest organ on your body, your skin in general. You probably don't want to touch that with hot peppers.
Don't perform any party tricks, things like that. Makes sense.
Yes.
I'm just curious as to what could be a permanent cure for irritated skin. You just implied that there is one, and what is that?
Well, for
Permanent
cutting
not
peppers,
having skin.
Yeah. Well, I mean, something like that. I mean, it's a temporary problem, so the permanent solutions is just eliminating what causes the problem. It's like if you have a thorn in your finger, pulling the thorn out, it's a permanent solution to that thorn.
And now we have the backstory to Terror Skull. He was too much irritated skin on the head, and that's how he came to be.
That's it. He removed his own skin, and he solved that problem. We actually had some conversations. There have been a lot of conversations as our team are finishing issues 3, 4, and 5 of the Super Show comic. But we also been working on the Ikazo universe and some other characters that might come about in that universe. And Terra Skull is one that we think would be a good fit. And also, you could have a little bit more fun with Terra Skull, where he's actually a character that's been reincarnated by people like Vampire Sekhmet or Bastet, and that could be, pretty cool. So
I see
cool
him
to see
more
a Terra
as
Skull coming up twice today.
Yeah, I see him more as a G.I. Joe villain.
Yeah, I mean, that looks like something that he would look like.
Yeah. I mean, which is always cool.
It's kind of got the Nightmare King going on, because I think he was created as a face. And like his name is Terra Skull, and he looks pretty evil, so.
Yeah. Master Micah would, with this very, I mean, I thought Candyman's questions were inflammatory, but this one is Victoria Joe, Samantha, or Ariel. Who is your favorite?
Who is my favorite? No, I mean, they're all favorites in different reasons, It's like, I don't know it's a cop-out answer, but you have your firstborn daughter, you have your wife, and you have, my daughter that I spend a ton of time with.
The only right answer to that is the diplomatic answer of no answer, really.
Yeah, it's not really a favorite, my favorite person in what sense?
Yeah. I mean,
I could tell you Sage cooks the best out of the three of them, and that's pretty essential in my lifestyle.
And it makes sense that she would cook the best out of the three of them, because she
writes the
nicest notes. Yeah,
she writes the nicest notes on your orders of the three of them.
We do. We try to take our time to give a little personal touch. My notes are usually not as friendly. Some of them are, but.
All right, Candyman, favorite higher class member.
I get General Manager John Clace, best man at my wedding. No offense to anybody else, but
poor Grope.
Oh man, I forgot Grope was in the higher class. Scratch that one. Damn.
I'm
I
sitting there like
through the list.
It's gonna be Grope. It's gonna be Grope.
Grope knew you were gonna do.
Oh man. Yeah.
Again, favorite is a tough thing. Not that some things are easy, but maybe I overthink everything. They're both very, very dear to me. Grope is they're both best friends of mine. I'd consider them best friends. I could count on Chad and John for almost anything, but in different areas of their field, if that makes sense, Calais I could count on as a friend and as a business partner, and Grope definitely goes above and beyond as a friend. Not that Calais doesn't either, so I wouldn't be able to pick between the two of those guys. I will stick with my answer of General Manager John Calais, but it's under protest and evaluation.
Yeah, fun time Bob saying not Big Match Pete.
Breaking the kayfabe, I actually really enjoy Big Match Pete as a non-poster in the SRG Universe Super Show discussion group. But IRL, Mr. Peter Robertson is very okay in my book. I enjoy his company.
That's fair.
La la la! I can't hear you.
Well, when you hang around, can I curse on your channel? When you're hanging around trash, you start to stink. What do you expect? He left the crime wave. He went to the higher class.
Yeah. I mean, it was a good move on his part.
You did also almost murder John Calais at DragonCon 2019 for making us wait 20 extra minutes for supper that one night at the Hard Rock.
I do not recall.
He pulled his gimmick on the front desk and told them that he had never waited for anything in his life and he didn't expect to wait now, and he made us wait longer, and you were really hungry and irritated.
I do not recall trying to kill General Manager John Calais. However, I don't think that was a gimmick. I think John Calais has never waited for a meal in his life. A story that Chad tells me pretty often was they took John Calais to an all-you-can-eat buffet, and he said that the shrimps were too crunchy, and he did not know that you had to peel the shrimp. All the shrimp he had in his life was pre-peeled and pre-prepared for him.
Wow, that's
true story.
All right. So Candyman would like to follow up with the favorite line member.
Favorite line member. So I'm gonna go through the line members that I know. Okay. We have Jeremy Steigerwald, Anthony the Cannoli. You're out. Sorry. Jeff Foxworthy, Hold the Line Harry, Andrew Mechie, Paul Trejo. How many are there?
8 total. So you're missing
Ken Fouché.
Yep. Now you're just missing 1.
I'm just missing 1.
It's hilarious that this is the
I
one
said Cannoli, Hold the Line Harry. Fox. Did I say Foxworthy?
You did. Yeah.
Jeremy Steigerwald.
One has the most interaction.
Yeah, this one's the bigger miss than
Andrew Mechie.
You said him.
Cannoli. Fouché. Hold Line Harry. Gibby. Oh man, this is bad. It's gonna be real blatant too.
Oh God.
Yeah. Which one is on the payroll?
Oh, Young Allergy. Yeah.
There you go.
I forget he's in the line. I did not. Yeah, that one I wouldn't have got if you didn't tell me.
Oh, poor Allergy. Man.
You're gonna get some really interesting edits on some of your content.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, so now that you got them all down, the question still stands.
Who is my favorite? Man, you know, it's another one that you forgot because I was going to say Foxworthy. I do enjoy me some Evan Harris, too. I'll take Foxworthy.
All right.
These are not by large margins.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody in there.
I would have went with
really
Allergy.
do enjoy it. Just if I could. Young Allergy is so awesome to talk to. Every time you talk to him is a learning experience. I love those sort of things. I know if anybody had tuned into Expanding the Universe, they're like, this is an English class now? It's like, yeah. I mean, this is what happens when you have Young Allergy around. Foxworthy, you do amazing stuff with streaming and hosting. I always enjoy your conversations. Steigerwald, same thing. You help us with the dojo bookkeeping. You keep your roommate in line. They do some awesome promos. Paul Trejo, we get to see the Chibi character and running weekly events. Anthony the Cannoli, big supporter. Contrary to popular opinion, I get along with Anthony Perry very well. I always have a good time playing with him. Hold the Line Harry is such a big advocate for the game, such a great player, such a friendly guy. Andrew Mechie is just a heartthrob. I'm blushing thinking about the United States champion. Ken Fouché, again, phenomenal guy, brand new player. Always a great conversation, very smart guy inside and outside of the ring. Very nice, even when he's being like exceptionally nice and maybe like slightly nice than usual. He's like, I feel like I was nasty today. And it's like, Ken, your level of nasty is the threshold on you is you're way off if you think that was being cranky. Did I miss anybody from the line?
No, I think you got us all that time.
I think I got you all. But yes, line great crew.
Yeah.
Definitely not my least favorite faction.
Yeah. And, of course, you wanted to follow up with your favorite Rack Pack member.
My favorite Rack Pack member. Yeah. Oh, man. I got a real special place in my heart for Yasmin. Always love that. Love Yaz. Shared her wedding with us. I don't know. These are tough questions. I would say first impulse would be Yaz, but Candyman, you're also up there as well. As I know, I feel you're a lot of fun in the community, and I love the dynamic that you and Candyman bring to the Super Show.
And
people are trying to stir it up with these. Who's your favorite?
Oh, yeah. Well, so, and
I want to say something I touched on before is favorite is there are very few things that I think about on a favorite level. You know, if you ask me my favorite Super Show competitor, I probably can tell you a couple of things I probably could tell you. My favorite color is purple, but like past that, I couldn't tell you my favorite artist or band or or comic book or character in general or movie. And there's just so many different things and so many different avenues.
Yeah. So to go back into the favorites, because VHS 101 would like to know, Wait for It or Uberstar?
Wait for it. I mean, Uberstar is a nuisance. That's it.
Fair.
Correct answer.
Big Jim Bias would like to know who wins the Tornado Tag Team title match tomorrow between Grump or the Headband Champion.
Who do I think will win, or who do I want to win?
Probably. Well, he's saying who wins, so I mean.
The Grump retains. I mean, the Grump is the
professional wrestling, so it should be
2021 and
preordained.
play 22 wrestler, competitor of the year, player of the year rather, and he's a great player to begin with. Not that Matt Nealon is not; he's excellent, but that combo he's got right now, which is trio level powerful, and throw in the dynamic of giving it a title belt, 2 16s is pretty brutal stuff to deal with.
All right. And
Who is Matt Nealon playing? Is it the X Kittens
I don't know. I have no clue. I don't know.
or DTF?
That I don't know. That's more of a Calais thing, I imagine. He should know. VHS 101 would like to know favorite member of the Crime Wave.
Myself next.
Yeah, I mean that's.
That was the easiest. That was a layup.
I mean there wasn't that many to choose from, so All right, Micah, would you rather wrestle in a ring against Press 1P or wrestle Booker Mania in a bubble bath? I assume.
Would I rather wrestle Press 1P in a ring or Booker Mania in a bubble bath?
Well, in a ring of a ring. So I don't know if he meant Ring of Fire or he just typed ring twice or. But.
I'm pretty sure I could take Press 1P in a wrestling match. But, something about getting fresh and clean with Booker Mania in a bathtub, bubble bath, no less. That seems like a fun time, too. I think I'm going to have to opt for the non-violent altercation, which I'm going to assume is going to end in non-violence. I mean, Booker Mania in the bathtub.
Yeah, so Micah did mean Ring of Fire, so yeah, that's even worse.
Oh, wow. No,
what's the good
tub.
part?
Give me the bubbles, baby.
Yeah, you don't dislike P that much.
Little
that you wanna
bubbles.
Set him on fire. But
Well, depends on what day of the week it is.
yeah, Candyman would like to know: do you think you could beat P for the world title?
In a game of Super Show?
Yes. Yes. I mean that is.
I can tell you this. If I had the opportunity to make it a triple threat against P, I would absolutely feel more confident that I could beat him than in a singles match. Yes, anything can happen in Super Show. It's the world's first unpredictable game. I think that Press 1P would not be ready for me in particular because he's going to be worried about certain cards that may or may not appear. I think I could throw him off his game. Yes, and I do think that I could beat Press 1P. Probably a lot easier than some of the other folks because they're coming in trying to beat Press 1P at his own game, and that's not going to happen.
That is fair. So, speaking of layups, Johnny Eldorado would like to know who is your favorite tag team in the LFF?
The boss's favorite tag team.
And Big Match Pete would like to know what do you love the most about Big Match Pete?
That he is well educated.
Oh yeah, Big Match Pete's great, and he's always posting those Uber history things.
Those are interesting.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're like, this can't be true.
Yeah, and then sometimes when you double check them, it's like they're slightly off, but they're close enough that for regular people it's fine. But I mean, they're very interesting. Which it's like he's a teacher or something, and he likes to share information and knowledge, which is always good. But I like to call him Big Match Tweed because he's very good with the voting systems, especially how he won favorite face, #1 face in the LFF by that poll voting. Definitely completely legit, legit poll. Definitely legit.
I accept it.
Yeah. So Candyman would like to know how you and Sam met.
Oh, it's a very long story. I could tell you when we rekindled our relationship. I shouldn't say relationship because we never had a relationship. My brother knew Samantha when she was growing up, and I knew her brother, who was a close friend of mine, for a very long time. We went to high school together. We did not go to college together, but we stayed in touch. And then one day I was at the Grand Machine's house, actually working on Super Show as well as some graphic design for a Dragon Ball Z project. And they had come back, my brother and her, and a concert and her friend, and I was working late on the computer. And we started to have, a normal conversation. And at some point, we had set up plans to go for lunch. And I thought it was a group thing. And I thought that Samantha thought it was a one-on-one thing. And maybe she claims that wasn't the case. So we went out to lunch, her and my cousin and myself. And then a couple days later, she was babysitting, and I brought her some lunch and some coffee. And then I called her brother, who's a friend of mine, and told him that I would like to take his sister out on a date. And he said, okay, do the right thing. And here I am, married with a child. So there's no looking back after that. But we knew of each other for a while, but not well enough. She knew my brother, I knew her brother.
Yeah, like 2 degrees of Kevin Bacon-ish in a way. Type of separation. Same circles, different groups. All right, so Johnny Eldorado would like to know, there are a lot of exciting SRG products in the pipeline. The comics, Ikuzo, Ring of Fire decks. Is there anything else coming along that has you amped up?
I'm pretty amped up for everything that comes out. That was a great question. The 8-bit decks are great. Those are coming out. They look unbelievable. Like when I'm flipping through those photos in the deck list, it's amazing to me on a couple levels. Number one, it actually looks like a video game. And knowing that those are characters that we had created just looks so amazing. And number two, the original plan I had for all Super Show decks art was whoever was on the box sets, all the cards in the box would be featuring them. And this is the first product that we've ever done that with. So when you have Super Ombre versus Snake Pit, all the moves are Super Ombre and Snake Pit doing it. I feel like it really feels a little bit more like a story in the box, and the same for the Big Shot and the Rising Sun single decks. The Marauders of the Multiverse, the Super Show expansion, which is very similar to the Cosmic Crusaders, where it'll be very good pre-constructed decks on 6 characters, is exciting to work on because we're acknowledging multiverses in the SRG universe. With one multiverse called the Ikuzo multiverse, and then these characters that are not necessarily villains of the Cosmic Crusaders, but 6 new characters that are much more sci-fi than we've done, and I think they look amazing. One of the characters, his beard is a literal flame of fire, and he's got a nice motorcycle, and Elvis did this art, so it's crazy. We have like a forest themed character that kind of almost looks like a female Groot inadvertently, and just a whole lot of stuff that we'll spoil on other episodes. But that's been excited to work with characters that are not the typical wrestlers and the competitors. Most excited of what was named is hard too, because I'm really excited for Ikuzo, but the comic books are something that I really never thought I would dive so far down into as we have. And just pages and pages of notes I have on the computers and on the phone of just, we've taken a character and we've gone so deep into who they are, down to who their parents are, what their income would be, what motivates them, what's their real life persona, what made them the way they are, what are they fighting for, and applying that not just to Super Ombre and Snake Pit, but so many other characters. And then looking at, wow, we mapped out season 1, and now we're already starting to map out season 2, and then season 3, and then really going back in and looking at season 1 and fine tuning it a little bit more to make sure all the hints are there. To me, it's just exciting in general when you look back and you realize, like, wow, we created all this stuff. And sometimes Sage will be on, around the house while I'm on the phone on these creative calls, and she's like, did you guys really come up with all that stuff today? And I'm like, no, some of it we touched on. And just, it's exciting to hear that somebody just listening in on it is interested in how deep the stories go. So I'd say most excited comic book. The Marauders of the Multiverse is really cool. Anytime you can work with Elvis, that's awesome. And then the Ikuzo, which opens up the universe into doing some of that supernatural stuff, is really cool. But I've had a lot of design work in that, but the LEO, he really has, that's, part his vision too. So it's been awesome to collaborate with him on those things.
Yeah, yeah, it's going to be a very
I have it
interesting
on-
thing when it comes out. Sorry, Jeremy.
I have it on good authority that the Marauders of the Multiverse are actually Uberstar's minions. I think he's lying, but
He could be working with
He
them.
does that.
Black Scorpion X might be one guy to tangle with them. We thought that was a pretty cool crossover. But yeah, that's the really amazing part of the storylines. A lot of them are really just canon that we've come up with, but we really try to tie in all these characters, and having this crossover, you can make characters like the Uberstar, who are not, just an amazing wrestler gimmick, but like a real supernatural force in other, in multiverses and universes. So I think it opens up the door for a lot of fun stuff, especially some alt art cards. I've been saying, like, I think it'd be really cool to see alt art cards that you play in Ikazo that are legal Super Show cards. One, for example, like bow and arrow, the follow-up stop, like having a character with a literal bow and arrow shooting. So like it's the same card literally, but with just a different art. And it makes so much sense in that world. Or even if we had like alternate art versions of like high impact shots, you could have South Bell shooting a machine gun with something like that, and it functionally be the same thing and the same name and everything. That sort of crossover on a small scale seems like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Kind of like if people were watching Expanding the Universe with the art that the Dread Pirate had of one being in the ring and one being on a ship. Which, like, same move on it, but the background changes, which just makes a huge difference in art and theme. But it's a neat change.
And I had a really fun, if I could spoil it, conversation with the other Steve, where I was like, if you would be willing to make this happen, I think this would really be funny. A 7 Seals card featuring Artie and 6 other Seals on the card art. I think that's one of the funniest alt arts that we'll do in a while.
All right, yeah, that would be literally funny. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I mean, because I know there are the people who are contingent who are all like purists in wrestling, like they hate the idea of like even death matches being in Super Show and things like that. But I think most of us get it's a game, and like humor is fun, and fun, cute art is always cool. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I think the 8-bit art's so popular, is because it's a throwback to when a lot of us were kids, and reminiscent of the old times. It's cool as shit.
also makes a lot. It also makes a lot of sense to expand to a larger customer base.
So when
Makes sense to me.
When I had first pitched Super Show, it was pitched to Topps. And they wanted a wrestling game, and I had actually drew up Super Show as a wrestling game, but I gave them samples as well. So you guys own the IP Star Wars, you have MMA, you have Marvel, you could do Darth Vader, this would be his gimmick, this would be Wolverine's gimmick, and the same concept that I had said. And then in that version, I changed the names of the skills, which is not what we're going to do for Ikazo, because we're just going to change the icons, because the icons are not referenced on the card. And they were like, no, you can't really combine IPs. How would it get along when you're using, Darth Vader, for example, and they have 3 dice rolls to break out. I'm like, those 3 dice rolls can represent anything. It clearly is the 3 count, which is so great, but it could be that they're having a fight like in Ikazo, where if they can't answer the 3 count, that they're knocked out, the fight is done. And they were very against this because, first of all, legally they probably can't cross IPs, but there are so many other games that do that, like Super Smash Brothers is one of my favorite games to reference in that, or like a Street Fighter or a Mortal Kombat, where you have people of different capabilities combining, and people don't question it because they understand it's a game. And I was like, you could even build, right, and in games like Smash Up, I'm like, you could build the games that they function together as we're doing with Ikazo, and people can do whatever they want with it. Like the DC deck building games too, like they were all sold separately, but if you really wanted to, you could mix them. And I always felt that was such an amazing idea. And they were like, no, you can't. I'm like, listen, it's not like if you put those products out separately, you could say like, no, you're not allowed to combine them ever. People could do whatever they want behind their doors. Like, even if you didn't specifically say we're going to put the Star Wars game and the Marvel game interchangeably. People could do that on their own. And that was me just trying to get through a loophole. And now, several years later, being able to kind of do what they said was impossible and not work is really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I know back in the 90s, like Anime Mayhem had their line of games, which was all like different anime properties, and like you could combine them in games. And in fact, I have the Dragon Ball Z one from I had back then, which actually ruined their game because it was so much more powerful than everything else. But like it's one of those things where you see a lot of hero clicks.
Yeah, you can't power creep it. Like you could expect the Ikazu stuff to be on the same power level.
The Undertaker and Spider-Man in the same game.
Yeah, like how cool would that be? Right, exactly. And HeroClix does stuff like that too.
Here's the Honda, aka Yamato Hama.
Copy it off.
Like this is all the same game.
Yeah, and it's weird for them to like sit there and just say like, oh no, this isn't a good, like when it's been a business model a lot of companies have implemented to great success. I mean,
yeah, and maybe we're even seeing some of that stuff in the wrestling world right now.
Oh God, yeah. I mean,
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. If I look enough, I'll find Gandalf. It's all the same game.
Yeah, and like I could just imagine when you get people who are like Brian Cage, who are big in the wrestling, but also bring it big into like Marvel and other horror movies. I mean, I could see you working with him to make it a Super Show Ikuzu character with like him as either like a superhero or a horror themed character, things like that. Like, so it even helps bridge the gap with things like that too. Like, you can even get people in, or even get people from. Imagine getting Kane Hodder in the game with someone based on him. Like if he was cool with it.
Yeah, and you meet so many amazing personalities that we've had sign spectacle cards. Imagine if some of those people could play the character that they represent in those movies, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like just like we've slowly were able to build a relationship with the wrestling world, we might even be able to do that with fantasy entertainment world. You know, you might be able to see other IPs that you like come to Super Show this way.
Yeah. And I mean,
like I would love Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That would be like the dream for me, you know, if we had them in Super Show. That was my favorite thing as a kid.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was great. Like I liked them as a kid too, and got into the comic books when I was younger. I have them somewhere, but yeah, I mean, obviously the comic books were a lot different than the cartoon, but I mean, the art was great, and it was always a great story. So Big Match Pete, apparently he walked away after your last comment, but so he didn't know if this was asked, and it wasn't. After all these years, what is your favorite Super Show moment or match?
I don't know. It's again, cop-out answer. I really love everything about Super Show. It's hard to pinpoint what my favorite matches are. Some things that stand out for me is Gen Con 50, I believe it was, or 49, where we had the wrestling ring and we had the finals, which was a triple threat. And, you know, the whole crowd was literally chanting and like counting 1, 2, 3 for the finish. And Pager Rager, who had, you know, gotten engaged that weekend and was pregnant, you know, that was a real magical moment. That was kind of surreal because I had always envisioned that Super Show would have a crowd like that where they were treating it like a wrestling match. So that one really stands out for me. I mean, the grand battle, being able to pull up a 106 person match. There's those two kind of really jump out for me. Legendary Realms, if you're going back to our play group, one time I had to defend the world title in a Fatal 4 elimination match with El Super Hombre, and I eliminated all 3 opponents. That's something that I'll never forget, you know, being able to overcome those odds. But I'm sure there's so many more that I'm overlooking, you know. I could think back on demos where I demoed with 10-year-olds or 8-year-olds and was blown away about how smart and how quickly they picked up the game. You know, that's something that I don't forget as well, as much as like a title match. Playing in the after school programs when we had the world championship matches, you know, inventing psycho rules as a stipulation. There's actually just so much stuff. I'm really fortunate and blessed, for lack of a better word, to be able to have, Super Show loved by so many people. It's hard to pick what my favorite moment is.
I mean, lots of good moments. Pete would also like to know who your favorite Ninja Turtle is. Well, he said favorite turtle, so it could be any of them, but I'm pretty sure he meant Ninja Turtles.
My favorite currently, for as long as I can remember, is Donatello, but there was a point where I loved Raphael. But as purple became my favorite color, I was like, purple's my favorite color. Donatello's the man, and I switched.
Yeah.
So Donatello most consistently. I never was a Leonardo guy. I feel like he was just kind of like OP.
Yeah, I was a Leonardo fan for the same reasons I was always like a Cyclops fan in the X-Men. Like I like the uptight leader for some reason. Like
Yeah.
until like they ruined Cyclops by making him a supervillain, but wasn't as much fun.
That's actually a good analogy, Cyclops Leonardo.
Yeah, it's the same basic type.
I was a Raphael guy, but that's from the first cartoon, which is when I got into it, where the characters are very different than the traditional characters. So it wasn't like loner, angry, badass Raphael. It was always make a smart ass remark no matter what Raphael.
Yeah.
So.
And I was familiar with him from the comic books too, so like his portrayal in that, and like I mean I liked when Raph got the black suit in the comics and things like that. He was pretty cool. He's a good character, but always a Leo. Of course, Young Allergy would like to pop in to correct us that Leo can't be OP given the reach of Don's bow staff.
Oh, the original Nintendo game, Don was definitely OP.
Yeah. All right. So Pete's saying this is the only way.
Was he the best in the original Nintendo game?
Yeah.
Because his stick went the longest. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the only.
But Raphael probably was bad, right?
Raphael was terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he did the side spin and stuff.
It didn't matter that Donatello was better. I still used Leonardo, but he was my main. Pete's happy about this because you don't slide into his DMs anymore. So what can you do?
I don't think I slide into anybody's DMs
no,
much anymore. The DMs, I'm answering so many DMs on a daily that I'm accepting the slide.
Yeah. Yeah, usually like 20
so
you should sign this guy, you should sign this guy, you should sign this guy. Now I'm just using Twitter to make all those posts.
The Twitter helps too.
Yeah.
All right.
Like sometimes when people ask me a question, I'm like, post to the group. I'm going to answer it, but I also want other people to see the question.
Yeah.
If you ask only me and you are aware of what's going on.
Jeremy?
So I have a nice open-ended question for you. A lot of times on Talk of the Universe and other places, you make reference to Super Show After Dark stories and so on. Is there a Super Show After Dark story that you haven't maybe told as often that you could just share with us?
Super Show
doesn't necessarily require it to be dark.
There are so many. You could tell our circle. We just like everybody else. We'd like to have some fun. We have some wild and crazy stories. None really jump out to me. I know sometimes I've mentioned like that's a Super Show for After Dark story. I'll tell you that at another time. If anybody has one of those specifically, I'll see how much I could talk about it. But off the top of my head,
this is another time.
It's a baffling document of how many, and the range of how After Dark they are or not is really big. So I don't, off the top of my head, I can't really pick one that you guys may have not, you may have heard, or you shouldn't hear, so on and so forth. But if anybody has, one time you mentioned that's a story for Super Show After Dark, I will gladly shed light on it.
So Nightmare King has a question. He should be popping on in the Zoom in a second.
So we'll get that. If somebody else pulls it up, I'll try to think of one.
What's going on, though? BOSS.
Mr. Nightmare King, how you doing?
I'm doing fine.
You're not in jail, right?
No.
Okay,
no.
just checking.
I got a couple questions to ask you there, sir.
Sure.
One of them is basically if you were in any type of company and you were going after the tag team titles, it can be any company. It can be AEW, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, ROH, any of them. Which tag team titles will you go for, and which brand will you go to?
Is that two different companies? Questions, I mean?
No.
So which title would I go for and which brand?
Yes.
I probably would say WWE. And I know a lot of people it would be wonderful to work with AEW, but at the time, as of right now, I think that your stock in anything goes way up, more so if you're on WWE television than any other promotion. So I would go for WWE.
Okay.
And what brand? Oh,
Yeah.
Listen, Raw probably gets better ratings, but it's been tough. I don't know if anybody would sit through it. I'm going for the SmackDown titles. Just right now, SmackDown's
so you
just a
will
way better
probably
product.
go for the SmackDown tag team titles. Okay.
That's right.
All right. Another question.
I'm going by myself, though, Nightmare King.
Well, whoever you want to bring with you, man.
I mean, my first pick would be Sage as my tag team partner. If Sage was unavailable, maybe I'd call up TJ Marconi. I think he'd be a good partner.
I don't know. I think Roman Reigns would have a punch with his name on it.
We get redemption. It would all come full circle.
Here's another one. BOSS. This is very hard, and this is the one that I had to think about real hard about. All right. If you have an option to face 2 people in a mixed tag, and I will give you 4 options between you and your wife versus the 4 people who's actually in a relationship or such and such. Nightmare King, Nightmare Queen, Candyman, or the obvious question with this part is none other than Mr. John Calais and his girlfriend.
Concrete Jungle Warrior?
Huh?
The Concrete Jungle Warrior?
Yes.
I call her the Domesticator.
The Concrete Jungle Warrior is his...
AKA the Domesticator.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
I'm sorry, but the Nightmare King and Queen would be out. For a match, the Candy family would have probably been my pick had you not thrown John Calais and the Concrete Jungle Warrior in. John Calais, as I said, best man to my wedding, good friend of mine. What better way to get to know somebody than work with them in a wrestling match? You know, wrestling is not all about fighting. It's about trusting each other and, you know, making art together while you guys hurt each other, or as little as possible, rather. I think that'd be a great little learning experience, getting to know the Concrete Jungle Warrior on that level and, you know, getting to smack John Calais around a little bit more than usual.
Okay, so you would not choose a Nightmare family then?
You guys would be the last pick. I don't know you guys like that. I don't know what I'd be walking into in a wrestling match, you know?
Well, you would never know if you did.
But I think that my Sage and I and the Candy family would actually have a blast as well, putting on a match together. And maybe you and I and the Nightmare Queen would have a great time. But from the information and the experience I have, that's how I would get my answer.
All right, sir. Thanks for answering the questions.
You're welcome.
All right. So, so let's catch up. Johnny Eldorado would like to know, all legal issues aside, what is the one wrestler you would love to have in Super Show? Not going to be the same.
Depends what day of the week you ask me, but in a perfect world, I'd say it has to be The Rock. You know, there's other people that would jump to my mind right away. Drew McIntyre, I felt I had the opportunity. He might be one as well. But, you know, selfish reasons, I think The Rock would have the most reach out of any wrestler in general. So if I could have anybody, probably The Rock.
Yeah, see, that's the kind of question that breaks my heart, because it should be Session Malt Martina. That's the answer to all those questions.
Cheeseburger.
So, UU Man 345 would like to know, what is your experience with the WWE Raw Deal TCG?
I had won the largest, I was told at the point, convention of all time, which I think it was beaten eventually, but at the time it was the largest convention in Nutriground. I defeated my brother in the finals. I was The Rock, he was JBL. And Baron Vagertoth, who wrote the tournament reports, said it was a match that everyone in attendance would never forget. That's because my brother had eventually let me win, and in the middle of the match, he played the Universal title or the Undisputed title, which I stopped with the "Don't try this at home," and we did actually very illegal plays, knowing that he was going to let me win. I didn't know that going in, but he clearly started to let me win, and Baron was recording the match at the time, so while he got really confused, and that was his write-up. I did really well with that. Baron said I was the best deck builder he ever saw, which was a big compliment because I was very young, and that was in regards to it's hard to be this original Undertaker, which was probably most notably my most notable deck. A lot of people said that. I had a lot of really crazy combo decks. I was very good at Raw Deal. I would like to say I played in the virtual world championships a few times, I think 2 or 3 times. I got second twice, I think, against Polverino, and a 4th place. Might have only been twice, I don't recall. In competitive play in that landscape, I never lost an all access game, even though Polverino was the champ 2 years in a row. I was very good at that format. I loved Raw Deal. I really did. But Raw Deal to me got way too complicated. Sometimes as a joke, I read my friends' Raw Deal cards just to see if they fall asleep through getting through one. It got way too complicated. It got way too serious. It's almost impossible, in my opinion, to play that game for fun unless you're doing a draft at some point. It really motivated me because I loved it so much. It was such a big part of my childhood. But I also wanted Super Show to be all the things that Raw Deal wasn't. And that was unpredictable, easy to learn, easy to teach, no power creep. A new player could beat an old player, and it had a lot more wrestling flavor. Raw Deal, you had stipulations that both people could reveal, multiple people could be champions, and we tried to avoid that sort of stuff, make it more thematic to not only the wrestling match, but the fantasy aspect of it, like the D&D style stuff after it. Super Show is much more easily, you're able to role play it a little bit more the way the game is designed. A lot of experience. Baron Vanger Toth, the creator, is actually one of my idols. And I don't think I would be here if it wasn't for qualifying for the World Championship and my flight being delayed and getting to spend a few hours with Baron in the airport. First person I ever knew that needed 2 tickets on an airplane. He was that big.
All right.
I remember asking him, Baron, where did you sit? And he's like, well, me and NBA players, we get 2 chairs.
All right. Harry Dad Gaming would like to know if you could work with the family of a deceased wrestler to get them into the game, who would it be?
The first name that kind of jumps to my head when you hear that is like Mr. Perfect, but I'm not sure if that would be my answer. I think that's something I really have to spend a little bit more time thinking about.
Yeah. Fortunately,
I loved wrestling too, but I got into wrestling a little bit later. Like when my memories of wrestling, guys like Roddy Piper and Ric Flair are not a big part of it. Hogan, I knew so much because he was in the NWO and he fought The Rock. Like I wasn't there for those, I didn't watch a lot of Snuka Live or Andre the Giant or Roddy Piper or Ric Flair. And fortunately, that means the era of wrestling that I started watching, most of the people are still alive. Except for like some real tragedies like Chris Benoit and Owen Hart, and then some indie guys have gone down. But unless I'm really missing something, none of the real big major stars have passed from my generation. Guys like Macho Man, Ultimate Warrior were like just before my time.
I mean, Eddie Guerrero, but yeah.
Eddie Guerrero, actually, that might be the answer.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, thanks for bringing that up, Fox.
Yeah.
Because as somebody who's worked with the independent wrestlers, especially House of Glory and Amazing Red, and, they had spoken with Sasha Banks when she was there. I cannot tell you how many places I've been where people talk about the impact that Eddie Guerrero had on them as a person and as a performer.
Oh, yeah.
So Eddie Guerrero would most likely be my answer.
Yeah,
I think that it would mean a lot to a lot of people to have Eddie Guerrero in the game.
All right. So Big Match Pete has a kind of an offshoot question for that. If you could get Sage to resurrect any wrestler, who would it be?
Like in real life?
Yeah, I think that's bring someone back from the dead.
I don't know. I mean, these are tough questions that I really have to spend a lot of time thinking about.
See, I would go
kinda
with me
go-
Mark Callis because he died and became an Undertaker.
Don't
Like, the first
Don't
person
pick
I was going to
anybody that
say
you-
is like Andre the Giant, but that might be boring. Like, think about the stuff you could ex Owen Hart or Chris Benoit if you brought them back, right? Like those, I mean, that's a little dark, but
Yeah, Benoit's a little dark. Yeah.
yeah, like Benoit, you could kind of.
Yeah.
It would be like an episode of Mindhunter if you brought back Chris Benoit. But what about like Owen Hart, or just some things that there's questions around. But if we're just talking about for the mere attraction of it all, probably Andre the Giant, man. How cool would it be to sing next to Andre the Giant?
And Johnny Eldorado, will Akuzo have champions or similar titles of prominence?
Champions, most likely, yes. But not in the same sense as a wrestling title belt, something that thematically fits, maybe trophies or things like that we've been working on.
All right. So we only got a few minutes left in the show. Normally I would tell people to get their final questions in, but probably won't get in time. Jeremy, do you have any final questions?
Anybody on that After Dark? Anything I might have mentioned?
No one popped up with anything.
I don't want to incriminate anybody on something.
Yeah.
I'll elaborate on previous information, but
Yeah, you man.
I think it's
345 would like to know what's your favorite episode of Dark Side of the Ring, though.
I've only watched a couple. I watched the Benoit one. I did watch the New Jack one. I couldn't get through it. I'll be honest with you. It was a little too gory for my taste. I was watching it in the afternoon one day. So favorite would be hard. I would guess it would have to be by default the Benoit one. Very powerful stuff. Very emotional. In general, just very powerful stuff to hear. People close to a situation like that. I thought it was very well done. I watched both parts of it. I never realized the star power of that show and the reach that it has. But as a lot of you guys may know, I don't watch a lot of TV and movies or podcasting. I do catch some stuff, but I'm not I haven't seen more than 3 episodes of Dark Side of the Ring.
And Jeremy, you were saying before I cut you off rudely?
I think it's that time of the episode where the guest gets to ask any questions.
Sure. I have a couple more.
Okay.
I mean, speaking of the reach of Dark Side of the Ring on Vice, with MLW having their deal with Vice, are any plans to try to reach out and get some more of the MLW guys in it? Because some of them, like Injustice, for example, were deeply offended that you picked the lame people you did instead of them for a Super Show.
So
Their words, not mine.
we had wish lists for MLW.
Okay.
And part of the things with wish lists, we were very happy with everybody we got.
Mhm.
Some of the people that we wanted to work with were too new to the company to have photos that were a part of MLW with the signings.
Okay.
They wouldn't be able to have finishing moves and things of that nature.
Mhm.
I don't believe the relationship with MLW is gone. I think it went pretty well for everybody. We're going to continue to do stuff, whether it's on the full sponsorship level that it was, is hard to tell, but I think we're going to maintain a relationship with them. And if we could do something that makes sense for both of us, we'll make it happen. I would love to be the annual sponsor of the draft. I think that would be really cool. So even like every year you could look forward to an MLW draft, but realistically, if there are things that we could work out for SRG shows as the world is opening up, where we have a working relationship with MLW, so those guys could come by for autographs or gaming events and stuff, we'd absolutely be open to that. And a sponsorship deal might have opened the door for that, but it's really too early to tell.
Ella Park, great. And you did have, I believe it was spoiled at some point that you signed Danny Limelight, right? Who is
Yes.
now with MLW as part of LAX. So hopefully that'll
So
expand.
some long-term booking with that really makes me laugh, and I had a good conversation with Leo the other day. Conan has been very vocal about us on a couple times on the podcast about those D&D nerds, and clearly talking about us.
Yeah.
And I would love to see his reaction when he's got Danny Limelight merch. So the long shot would be winning over Conan. I think that's really the dream.
I mean, I think Eddie Fury sent him a message on a podcast, and to argue about it, which was
I
pretty
would
interesting
love, if people are like, what would be the best guest for a grand gathering? I'm like, Conan and Disco Inferno. You know how awesome that would be to bring like the two biggest haters out there to hang out with us for grand gathering.
Yeah. Yeah, so that will be interesting with Danny Limelight. Well, he'll just say because he's not going by Danny Limelight in MLW, but
what's his MLW name?
Danny Rivera.
And that's LAX. He's been in addition to LAX.
Yeah, him. I think it's Slice Boogie and Julia Smokes, which is amazing to have Julia Smokes. That was he was literally one of the highlights. Me and the people around me were talking about how he's a natural treasure in pro wrestling. Julia Smokes, he's just amazing.
He's great. I also think he worked with Catalyst Wrestling, Matt Ryan.
Oh yeah, he's Julia Smokes works pretty much everywhere at some point or other indie wise. He was on the
TJ show.
Yeah, the last TJ Joe round when Highlander happened last. He was on that show as well.
Nice.
Yeah, he's all over the place. All right, so yes, we should do the final question that we have since the Christie era started, where the guests get to ask a question of the host. So you get to ask a question to Jeremy and then a question to me.
So my question first would be for Jeremy, and I answer it as honestly as possible. What are your expectations for the Super Show comics? Where is your bar? Are you?
It's going to depend entirely on where and how and if you get distribution. Like
that's a good.
As far as
storyline wise.
Oh, I'm excited for it. I really want to see it, and given that all the conversations we've had, you, Pat Mulligan, I've got high hopes.
Great to hear. Mr. Foxworthy.
Back to me.
What would you say the impact of having Tell Us About Yourself in your life has had on you?
It's made me a lot more busy. It's a good show. It's a double-edged sword in many ways because there are many people in this community, and I am a horrible scheduler. So a lot of people think that when I don't schedule them, it's because I don't think highly of them, when they don't realize 90% of the time people come to us. And it's like, oh, cool, we'll fit you in when you can. But I am literally horrible at scheduling. So half the time I don't know who's on next week because I'm really bad with it. Like, I believe Angela actually scheduled this with you. Because I'm like, I don't have a guest for next week because I've been busy. But it's fun because, I get shout-outs on podcasts, like the one you did last week, I believe it was. With, oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. I listened to the podcast.
Gabe Santiago?
Yes. You gave a shout out for there, so that's always cool to be get shout outs on like wide ranging things like that, and it's fun. And you know what? What I like most about the show is it's very good for the community because there's a lot of people who don't get to socialize with everyone, and it helps people talk to each other and learn things about each other, and have conversation starters. So it's always good. And even if the first 15 minutes of the show is all the pretty much what I consider the meme questions for the show, like pineapple or pickle or cheese, things like that you have to get through now that they build up. But that's also a beauty of it too, because the show has a following where it has developed its own little culture thing where people want these questions asked. So
that's
fun.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah,
I agree that it's nice to put a face and a voice to some of the internet personalities because that makes you get to know somebody a little bit deeper, and if they're playing around when they say things. So I think it's a great addition to the community. It also helps cool stories, things that you might not forget.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. As long as I don't talk bad about certain factions and have my DMs blow up because I made jokes.
Yeah, one thing I want to touch on that you said with the guests, and I've had from my experience, people reach out to me and say, you didn't pick me for a title shot. It's because you don't think high enough of me. You don't trust me. It's like sometimes that's just not the case.
Yeah.
I feel I'm pretty upfront. If I think that's an issue, I would tell somebody that. But I would, to defend the Tell Us About Yourself staff, don't think so low of yourself that if they didn't reach out to you, it's for a reason other than it just didn't cross their mind, or there's somebody else booked, because I'm sure you're not booking this 6 episodes in advance. It's probably week to week, right? I got my one done. I'm not going to think about it until next Wednesday.
Yeah,
I was
most of the time. Yeah,
I was originally booked as a guest like last June or April, and then I actually was a guest like what
6
February?
months later. Yeah. Well, it's a long time. Yeah, so, and there's people like Dave Marasek, like, he wasn't able to make the show he signed up for. We haven't gotten to, like, reschedule him. And it's not that we don't like Dave, it's just, I'm horrible at scheduling. Yes, so it depends on who does scheduling. If, like, Christy or Angela do scheduling, we can get, like, a few weeks booked ahead of time. But when it comes down to, like, me doing it, it's like, okay, it'll be, like, Sunday. Who are we signing for? Who's on the show next week? And I'm just horrible at it. There's only so many things I can focus on, and I'm always one of those people, because, like, when we first started the show, there were people who would back out, and then it would throw the whole schedule up, and then you have people like Jeremy who don't get on for like 9 months later, because they got pushed back because someone else missed the show, and then it fell through the cracks, and I don't like doing that to people either. So.
Good to know, Jeremy, that if BLSS couldn't do the double duty because the Super Show Dojo is coming up,
Yes.
that you would have had my back.
Yeah.
You'd be the contingency plan.
All right, and with that, we end the show. Speaking of next week, we might not be on next week. It depends on whether I'll be home in time, and if I am home in time for the show to happen, I will actually be the guest with 2 other hosts. So we'll see how that goes, how that disaster goes if it happens. But
Tell us about your host.
Yeah, I might not be here next week, though. I might not be able to make it, so we'll see what happens with that. But that is...
We'll ask him one question about steak, and that'll be the hour.
Oh, God, yeah. Don't get me started on food. Speaking, which is very bad to start now with that. All right. So, folks, thank you all both for being on the show. You're co-hosting Jeremy, and obviously coming back as a guest boss. I'm sure... we could probably do like 25 more hours of content that people would love, but they'll have to wait maybe another year. We'll see. It's always better leaving people for more. And for everyone else, we will see you next time. Later.
Bye, man.